Hello, my name is Donald Souls, and I'm excited to be your professor this semester for logic and legal reasoning. Today, I'd like to make a video for you just to orient you to the course, to tell you what sorts of things you might come to expect from me. I'd like to go through the syllabus and just lay out everything that I expect of you in the course so we can be clear from the beginning. And perhaps, though, I should start off by just expressing my gratitude to you for choosing to spend some of your time with me this summer when you could be doing other things. I'm deeply appreciative for everyone who signed up to take the course because it ensures that I can feed my family this summer. Speaking of which, I have a wife, Rachel, and a daughter, Abigail, and I'm expecting another child in October, so it's exciting for me. I have a little bit of a legal background myself. I went to law school in Virginia and I passed the bar in Virginia about 7 years ago. I have a master's degree in philosophy from Texas Tech and a PhD from Ohio State University. Well, at least next year I will. So that's my background. Ultimately, I wasn't so interested in the law, but I really enjoy this class because it is, for many of you, the first opportunity you have to see what the law is like from the inside. And so I've prepared this class as kind of a taste of the kinds of reasoning characteristic of those working as attorneys. And I think that from my experience, I've pulled three primary kinds of reasoning to use as kind of examples of what you'll be doing if you work in a capacity associated with the legal profession. Now, in my experience, the people that take this class typically fall into one of two categories. The first category is a kind of student that noticed that this class fulfills a math credit and they didn't want to take a math class. And so that's why they're here. And if that's you, I'm happy to have you. Another kind of student that I'm equally happy to have is a kind of student who is interested in going to law school. And so they take the class wondering if maybe they'd be a good fit for that kind of job. And in this class, I couldn't help but notice that we have some people from the Program 60 program. And so I'm extremely grateful that these people have also chosen to take the course with me. I guess if I was an undergrad, what would I want to know right up front? I think what I'd want to know right up front is the professor going to be easy or is he going to be hard? Let me assure you right up front that although I do like to assign challenging work, I grade the work pretty leniently, and I try to do my best to help all the students meet their goals if those goals are sufficiently expressed to me. For me, this is a bit weird because this class is an asynchronous online course. I've never taught a class like this before. I'm used to seeing you all in the classroom and interacting with you and getting to know you and getting to talk about things on a week-to-week basis. And in some way, I'm kind of sad because I won't be able to do that in this class. So one of the things I've tried in order to remedy this deficiency is to have this completely optional live meeting on Friday. You don't need to come to these at all, but if you're the kind of person that feels like some of your educational experience has been diminished because you're in an asynchronous online class, then you can come to this optional Friday meeting and just chat with me about the material. And actually, it needn't be about the material at all. We could talk about life, anything you're going through. But at least we can talk about the material at these meetings on Friday if you'd like to. Going forward, however, I'd like to usually post 2 videos per week, and I'll try to post these on Sunday. I'll post these videos on Sunday, and they'll cover the readings that you'll do for the week. I would, I have 2 interests, I guess. One interest I have is in you having a delightful summer where you get to rest and relax a bit. I think that this class should be relaxing and enjoyable. On the other hand, I also do believe in the value of pushing yourself to read hard to read material. And some of the cases that I've assigned are a bit dense. And given that you have little to no antecedent experience with some of the legal reasoning involved here, it might be challenging for you. I'd like for you to push through these challenges and to try to do the readings. Push yourself to do the readings and to get what you can from them, and then watch the lectures. Then watch the lectures that I post, because I'll elucidate the material, hopefully, and explain to you what exactly was going on. And through time, I think you'll find that you acquire a skill in digesting this arcane and kind of hard to understand material better and better. One of my regrets, I guess, as an undergrad is not reading enough. I felt like I saved a lot of this hard work for law school. And really, I could have bettered myself greatly if I had just pushed myself a little bit in law school. A little bit as an undergrad. So I guess relax and have a good summer. I'm not going to be a terribly difficult grader. In fact, it'll be quite easy, I think. But also, get what you can out of the course. Push yourself. Try to do the readings. Try to immerse yourself in these things. Try to think like a lawyer. Um, so I guess those are the few things I wanted to say kind of outside the syllabus. Um, and I guess now what I'd like to do is to kind of systematically go through the syllabus point by point and sort of describe to you what exactly I expect you to do in the class. So let me share my screen. And let me come to our course page. And on this main page of Carmen, I hope you'll find that I've organized it quite nicely for you. I've spent a good amount of time doing this. And so all the readings, if you don't want to consult the table of the syllabus and try to figure out which week we're in, I've just written what date you should have done the reading by. Now, of course, you needn't have actually done the reading by this date, just that if you want to come to the optional Friday session to discuss the material with me, it would help if you had done the reading by this date. So maybe push yourself to have the reading done by Friday. And then if you're so disposed, come to the live meeting and ask me questions about it if you want. If not, then you should kind of feel free to consult me anytime. So here are the individual modules. The way I've kind of roughly arranged this course is very interesting to me, at least. I've given you one kind of reasoning that is a very paradigmatic form of legal reasoning. In that kind of legal reasoning, what one does is they try to make these arguments for their client that the facts of a particular case make one rule of law more applicable than another. And then meanwhile, there's an adversary, another attorney, who's trying to do the same thing, but with a different rule and for their client. And so we'll kind of wade through some of those problems. And yeah, perhaps now would be a good time for me just to kind of get into the syllabus, though, and tell you what I expect you to do for the class. All right. I would like you to call me Donnie if you want. You can call me Mr. Souls, Professor Souls, anything you want, but I like Donnie. It's very informal and it's nice. I think in this day and age, people are too obsessed with titles, and I just like to be called Donnie. Here's my email right here. And if you're the kind of person who's just given to worrying, I'd rather you just call me or text me than to spend any moment longer being anxious about something that probably in the grand scheme of things is not all that big of a deal. So if you're just consumed with self-doubt and anxiety, give me a call and we'll resolve the matter very quickly. Otherwise, you can just email me. And sometimes students send me Carmen messages, but for whatever reason, I find it harder to respond to those. So if you send me an email, you should get a very quick response from me. Now, this is an asynchronous online section, as I've mentioned before, but I will have this completely optional live session on Friday, with the exception of two dates. June 21st and June 28th, I'll be unavailable for meeting, but I should be accessible by email. So any question you have, please email me and I'll respond as soon as I can. But these 2 weeks, probably from June 18th until July 3rd, I'll have to be offline and I'll respond only by email, but I'll be a quick and effective communicator if any problem arises. And I'll especially make myself available before any writing assignments are due, because that's usually the time at which students would like to meet with me before they have a major assignment due, right? Now, maybe I was talking about the kind of student that usually takes my class, those interested in law school or those interested in knocking out a math credit, and you thought, that doesn't really describe me. I just was sort of interested in the material. Well, that's great. I'm happy to have you. And I think that whatever kind of skills that I convey to you in this course, I think they'll generalize and be applicable to virtually anything you choose to do in your life, because for anything you choose to do, I think the law will be applicable to that situation. If you're a business manager, you'll have to know what the relevant regulations are. Perhaps if you work in a hospital, you'll need to know not only what the hospital code of ethics is, but also relevant laws. And if you're a scientist, you'll also need to think about uh, the way that the law kind of regulates science and whatnot. I think that there are just so many different ways for you to apply this kind of rule-based reasoning to whatever it is you choose to do. But I think there isn't a special benefit that those interested in going to law school will receive from the course. They'll kind of see whether they would excel at the kinds of assignments that predominate law school. And to the rest of you, I hope it's not too boring, and I hope you kind of think of some way that you can apply these to your own life. And I think that the skills you hone in this class will help you in so many different areas of your life. So now I'll just kind of go through and talk about the way I intend to sort of fly this plane. I think that the first kind of legal reasoning, as I've described before, is this kind of adversarial legal reasoning in which you try to make arguments about whether a set of facts properly renders it under the purview of a certain legal rule. So what we'll begin by doing is looking at some introductory logical concepts of validity and soundness. If you've seen these in another class, don't worry, we're not going to spend very much time with them. But I'd like for us to sort of get this logical vocabulary into our tool belt before we kind of push on to other areas of the law. This piece by Jeremy Waldron in week 2 is a basic look at some of the philosophical issues associated with property law. I think you'll find it interesting, kind of a nice philosophical foundation to what we'll be doing. Then these 3 cases here are where you really start getting to think like a lawyer, because these look at the English common law and some early American law, and they relate to a very special issue about finder's law. So perhaps you've been walking along before and you found something on the road. Maybe it was money, maybe it was a watch, maybe it was something else, and you picked it up and you didn't see any owner anywhere in sight, and an owner could not be easily ascertained, and maybe the thing was not very valuable, so you never bothered to look for them. There's a question about whether you could ever have good title to that thing you found. Could an owner forever come along and divest you of that title? Could another party assert a rival counterclaim? Who would get superior title, we might think, to this property? And so I think it's kind of interesting area of the law. It's one that I studied during my law school orientation, and lo and behold, it ended up on the bar exam the year I took the bar. And I passed the bar because I learned it in law school. So I think it's just a cool area of the law, and I'm looking forward to teaching you about it this semester. This is called finder's law. This last piece by Paulus is kind of an introduction to finder's law, and it's a nice summary in case you ever get lost in some of the details of the cases. The first writing assignment that I've assigned will pertain to basically these readings here. It'll pertain to Bridges versus Hawksworth, Hannah versus Peel, Goddard versus Winchell, and then this finder's law outline. The first writing assignment is a fact-based prompt, which you will answer in about 1,000 words. And basically, I give you a set of facts about property that was lost. And then I ask you whether, under English and American law, what the results would be, which parties would end up with the best title to this thing that was found. And you'll get to write this answer using a format which I'll tell you about in the coming weeks. So that's the first writing assignment. Beginning with week 5, we change gears and we begin thinking about a different kind of legal reasoning. It's one that relates to statutory interpretation. So at various times, lawmakers make these rules, and at various times also, they're not maximally clear, and debates arise concerning the scope of these rules that have been promulgated by Congress or other lawmakers. And so these questions arise about what fixes the meaning of a statute. Are they things like the drafter's intentions? Are they just the meaning of terms as an original audience would have understood them? Are there moral considerations that bear on what a statute might mean? These questions arise. And there are different conventions and methods for settling these kinds of questions. We'll look at one in particular that relates to the constitutional law of privacy, which ultimately morphed into a constitutional protection for abortion, which was recently overturned, by the way, in Dobbs versus Jackson. And so it will be interesting for us to think through sort of the jurisprudence associated with abortion and privacy, to see how it kind of rose and fell. And this other kind of legal reasoning to which I'll expose you in this course deals with the canons of good interpretation. So for this second module on the good-making features of legal interpretation, we'll look at this piece by Bobbitt, which sort of describes what kinds of arguments will count as good arguments when we're interpreting a statute. We'll look at Anita Allen's piece on the constitutional law about privacy, in which she kind of characterizes existing arguments for a right of privacy. And then we'll look at some of the cases themselves. So again, this is exactly the kind of thing you'll see in a law school constitutional law class. We'll begin with Griswold versus Connecticut, which in many ways sets the stage for a constitutional right of privacy. It derives them from penumbras of the Bill of Rights, which is quite exciting to think about. You can then see how this reasoning is applied to abortion in the case of Roe versus Wade. We can see how the Supreme Court silently steps away from this kind of reasoning in Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And then we'll see how it's abolished altogether in Dobbs versus Jackson. There's no way I've spelled this correctly, but Dobbs versus Jackson is what I'll call it. There's then this piece that I've put in here in which we'll think about whether there are better arguments for a constitutional right to an abortion than those that are listed in the cases themselves. And one of the proposals that frequently arises is just that there's a constitutional right for an abortion that's grounded in the Equal Protection Clause rather than, say, the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause, as was held in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, or perhaps a penumbral right of privacy, as was held in Roe versus Wade, and kind of stems from Griswold versus Connecticut. So it'll be something else for you to think about. A last module of the course kind of encourages you to think critically about the law and shows you the way that probably illicit influences interact with our legal reasoning. And so there are kinds of people that think that just because something is the law, that it ought to be done in some sort of sense of ought. And so I'd like to caution against this kind of thinking by looking at some cautionary tales, unfortunately, from events that actually happened. And we'll think again at the very end about this interesting and politically charged view called critical race theory, whether this is actually illuminating to our theories of interpretation or not. Now, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I hear about critical race theory, it seems like one side of the political spectrum thinks that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's this necessary view that we need to make sense out of the law and the experience of many today. Another kind of person sees critical race theory as kind of a Trojan horse that we're using to corrupt the youth, right? I kind of like to get to the bottom of all this. I'd like to see whether either of those caricatures of the view hold true, but this will not be a significant portion of the course. We'll think about some of the tenets of critical race theory to see whether they help explain some of the legal reasoning and whether it's good or bad or not. In other words, does anything from critical race theory actually help us ascertain whether legal reasoning counts as good or bad? So I'll let you kind of draw those decisions for yourself. I'll give you the resources to sort of draw those conclusions. But this is all done with the aim of showing how perhaps we ought not take the law as it is and just assume that it's the right thing to do just because something is the law. Believe it or not, some people probably quiescently hold a view like this, and I've met them, and perhaps you have as well. Now, for the course itself, okay, I said that at the end of this week right here, after you've read Finder versus Locus and Quo, I've unlocked the first writing assignment, which will ask you to analyze a set of facts using the laws that I've taught you. Now, after you've read, say, Allen, equal protection, and abortion, I'll open up a second writing assignment, also 1,000 words. And in that writing assignment, you'll be asked to, one second. There's a tornado warning out. I'm just worried that I'm going to die. guess I'll have to take that risk. Yes, so in the second writing assignment, you'll be asked to analyze the legal reasoning in Roe versus Wade and ask me whether it's logically fallacious or if it's sound. I'll give you the resources to do that. And I think it'll be interesting for you as you form opinions about the legal reasoning there. Final exam is a pretty easy assignment, I think. It's a very short essay. And basically in that essay, what I'll ask you to do is look at a piece of legal reasoning and tell me whether this guy right here, Derek Bell, would approve or disapprove of the reasoning. And then you can ask me whether any tenets of critical race theory entail those hypothetical conclusions you would have drawn. And this final week of exam review, I'll submit a practice exam and I'll give you comments on it. And so you'll feel fully confident and energized going into the final exam. This final exam, I anticipate releasing on the very last day of classes, so you can just get it out of the way and go into any other summer classes and the finals you have for them with a clean slate. So I don't want this class to be a burden to you, but that's my plan. So the first paper will be due week 5. I've posted the assignment date to Carmen. They're on the assignments right now. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. The second short paper is due week 9, and I believe that'll be at the beginning of July, and then kind of toward the end of July, we'll do this final exam. So I think it'll be a very easy class as far as assignments go. You just have 2 short papers and a timed final. And if you do the practice exam, you should be in a very good position to do well on the final exam. Now for the nitty-gritty. Let's see here. This is an online class, so it's hard for me to judge participation. Again, your attendance at the optional meetings is completely optional. Otherwise, it wouldn't be optional meetings, right? So I just anticipate that you'll watch the lectures and do the writing assignments. And I think it should be pretty hands-off as far as all things are considered. The main thing, though, I mean, the majority of your grade will be on these writing assignments. I welcome you, by the way, to send me drafts if you're apprehensive about them. I can look at them, give you comments and feedback, and then probably steer you in a better direction. Happy to do these things. We have a very small class, and so really you should think of me as a kind of an approachable kind of figure. When I was an undergrad, I didn't often want to go talk to my professors because I was scared I was wasting their time. I assure you, you're not wasting my time. And you should send me any kind of draft you have. Let's look at it together. Let's shop it. Let's brainstorm, and let's get the best piece of writing out that you can be proud of. But yeah, send me the writing assignments ahead. I can look at drafts. I have no problem doing this given the size of the course. And that's going to be the majority of your grade. For the final exam, again, you'll just read the text and then tell me whether an author would have approved of the reasoning that is identifiable in that piece of reasoning. And then I'll give you a practice exam beforehand so you can be completely confident going into the final. I don't accept late work. And if you for some reason anticipate that your work will be late, then send me an email maybe 24 hours before the due date. A lot of times what students end up doing is they just submit late work, or they don't submit something without notice, and I go to grade the assignment and it's missing, and I have to give that work a 0 because the work just isn't there, and I can't go around sort of hurting up work, right? So if you anticipate a problem, just send me an email and we'll work something out. It's not that big of a deal, a legitimate reason, if you have a legitimate reason. But just inexplicably not sending work or submitting it seems pretty bad, so don't do that. Also, please don't cheat. I spend a lot of time running my question prompts through ChatGPT and kind of looking to see what kind of answers ChatGPT generates. It's quite easy for me to tell when students are relying on these kinds of AI kind of chatbots. And I also kind of have an eye for plagiarism as well. And so please don't try these things. Just do your own work and just enjoy thinking about the material. I want to read your original work anyway, but also don't cheat. And then for accessibility, I've designed all assignments to be quite accessible to the students, and the final exam is kind of designed for even a student with learning with a SLDS accommodation to be able to do this assignment very well. I don't anticipate there being any challenges for any student with a learning disability, but if you anticipate a problem, then just reach out to me proactively and we'll try to figure out what the best solution for you would be. I guess that's all I have to say for the syllabus. So this course is pretty well laid out, I think. Now you can come to the website and see the due dates or kind of the expected progress, the times by which you should be doing the readings. I think it'll make everything pretty streamlined for you. On Sunday, I'll try to post the first 2 videos so that you can work ahead. And then every week consecutively, I intend to make more and more videos so that you can just go through and perhaps work at your own pace. But the assignments, unfortunately, won't unlock until certain dates. So I think writing assignment 1, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't unlock until May 31st. So I don't know that it would do you much good to work too far ahead because the writing assignments won't even be due until, or they won't even open until certain times. For now, I think that's all I really wanted to say. I think, of course, after I end the video, I'll think of something else and just wish I had said it. But for now, just thank you for being in my course. I think it's going to be very exciting. I think you're going to get a fantastic foretaste of all the kinds of legal reasoning that you might expect to see if you have any close connection with the legal profession. But then again, I think that the skills that I'll test in this class, the skills that I'll try to impart to you, will help you in whatever you do. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I hope you have a wonderful summer. I'm looking forward to doing this course with you. Have a good evening and stay safe. Don't get sucked up by the tornado.